Dokkan Battle has had a crazy year in 2021, and it introduced a ton of new Dokkan Festival units this past year, all of which have all been top tier units, but of course, there has to be a top 10. Now, my list, number one, this is my personal opinion, so you are free to disagree with me. However, this is my personal opinion on what I think and why, or who are the best TURs in the entire game. No, this list does not include EZA units or the Dokkan Fest LR units. This is exclusively Dokkan Fest TUR units. But without further ado, let's talk about my top 10 best Dokkan Fest units from 2021.
Let's talk about it!
Coming in at the number 10 spot, actually, is going to be STR Dokkan Fest Videl. Now, Videl is a bit controversial for a lot of people, but I have to include her on this list because her power is just borderline insane. Now, I'm not going to go into super heavy detail because I don't want to make this a 30-minute video for each individual unit, right? But, I mean, Videl has... there is almost no downsides to Videl. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. There is downsides to Videl. But, of course, the main thing with Videl is that she's borderline the strongest TUR in the entire game, but, of course, her links and her categories do suffer from it. Now, of course, being only on 4 teams, and she doesn't really link well with a lot of different units, does hold her back. But when you use her correctly on her given teams, she's by far one of the strongest units in the entire game, and you really just cannot underestimate her power at all. And she's gonna get more categories. That's the one thing you need to keep in mind. She will get more categories, and with the more categories, she'll only get better over time. So the only reason why right now she's at the number 10 spot is she's just so held back by by the lack of categories. But once she starts getting more, she might slowly creep up this list. But for now, I do keep her at the number 10 spot. Coming in at the number 9 spot is actually going to be AGL Dokkan Fest Kid Gohan. Now, I don't have a whole lot of complaints about Kid Gohan, to be honest, but there are a couple of things to go over, right? I do love Kid Gohan's support. I think one of the main reasons why I have him on here at the number 9 spot for best Dokkan Fest units in the game is he benefits all of his teams, which isn't really a lot. He is on like 20 different categories as some of the other Gohan units are in the game, but for the category teams that he's on, he benefits them all with that 3 key and 50% defense support type passive. He greatly benefits basically all the units on that team at any given category that he's on. Now, the only difference is that he does not hit very hard. He doesn't link very well with a lot of other units as well, but again, that support capability really comes in clutch for him, which is why I do have him at the number 9 spot. Coming in at the number 8 spot is actually going to be Int Legendary Super Saiyan Broly. Now, Broly, I was very, very surprised. Originally, I had Broly when he first came out way back in March. I thought he was, if not the best TUR in the game at the time, because when you run Broly correctly on any of his given teams, he's a juggernaut. I'm glad that they finally did Broly right and gave him a defensive unit. We have not seen a defensive Broly in the game up until now, and he is so desperately needed for a lot of the teams that he's on. He was a main beneficial unit on my movie bosses Super Battle Road runs, especially in Extreme Super Battle Road. He is a must-run unit for that team, but of course the main thing that really holds Broly back is his lack of big bad bosses, and he doesn't really link well a lot with the other villain units, like on the movie bosses team, for example. He doesn't really link well because he doesn't have big bad bosses. If he had big bad bosses, he might actually have jumped up a couple of spots, but of course since he doesn't, I do have to keep him down here at the number 8 spot. Coming in at the number 7 spot is actually going to be the Physical GT Super Saiyan Goku. Now this one is actually interchangeable. You could really make the argument for the GT Vegeta as well for swapping back and forth. The reason I put Goku below Vegeta, who I'm talking about in a minute, is the main thing is Goku isn't really as necessary as Vegeta is for a lot of his teams. Now, don't get me wrong, Goku is still a fantastic unit when you run him on the 3rd slot or 1st slot unit, hitting 5 million attack. He's a great nuking type unit, making rainbow key spears for everybody. Fantastic unit overall. But the Goku family team and a lot of the teams that the GT Super Saiyan Goku is on just isn't really, like, he's not as necessary compared to Vegeta. But nonetheless, he's still a fantastic unit. He's basically a must-run for all of his categories that he's on. And I really don't have any complaints about him. He's an absolutely godly unit, but in comparison to his counterpart, the GT Super Saiyan Vegeta, well, let's move on. Coming in at the number 6 spot is, of course, going to be the GT Super Saiyan Int Vegeta. Now, like I said about Goku, the main reason why I do put Vegeta above Goku is he's way more necessary for his team, because the Vegeta family overall doesn't get nearly as much love as the Goku family, and a lot of the Vegeta categories in general. And it's really noticeable how much it greatly benefits the team when you have this GT Super Saiyan Vegeta on it, especially when you keep him on a main rotation, or if you just keep him on as a floater unit and just have him create the Rainbow Key Spears overall for the team. He is a must-run for all Vegeta family teams, in my personal opinion, no matter what happens, and he is by far one of the best linking partners for one of the other units who I'll get into later in this video. Coming in at the number 5 spot. Now, some of you might be surprised by this, but yes, I do put Tech Ultimate Gohan at the number 5 spot on this list. Now, I know, blasphemy, I have Tech Ultimate Gohan on my list, but I can't, there's no reason not to put him on this list. Now, a lot of you may know, I was not high on Tech Ultimate Gohan, as a lot of other people were, especially when he first came out, but in 2021 in particular, we have seen a lot, and I mean a lot, of Hybrid Saiyan buffs throughout the year, mainly in particular, like I mentioned down below, with the AGL Kid Gohan Dokkan Festival, who is a fantastic linking partner and partner overall for Tech Ultimate Gohan for the Hybrid Saiyan team. Tech Ultimate Gohan has gotten many buffs throughout the year, mainly just from the release of all the other units throughout this year, in particular, like the SCR Super Saiyan 2 Trunks, for example. Or is he Super Saiyan? That's one or the other. But, I mean, it can't go without saying that a lot of the units that have come out this year have greatly buffed Tech Ultimate Gohan, and his presence on a lot of the teams and categories that he's on can't go without saying that he's by far one of the most valuable units in the entire game. If you pull him, because Tech Ultimate Gohan is on so many different teams, and it just goes without saying that, yeah, Tech Ultimate Gohan is absolutely insane. My only complaint about him right now is that his offense is a little lacking, but you're not really using him for offensive capabilities. You are using him for his defensive capabilities. Gohan is basically a lifesaver on all of his teams that you run him on. I have, like I said, no real complaints about Tech Ultimate Gohan now after all the buffs he's gotten throughout the year. Just offense, I would say, is the only downside to him, if you're not running him on a main rotation. That's the only thing where he really doesn't shine in, is his offense, but his defense, I mean, if it wasn't for other units like LR Janemba, for example, Gohan would still be like the best defensive unit in the entire game. So that is at the number 5 spot. Coming in at the number 4 spot, now this one is definitely interchangeable. I had a really hard time deciding who I wanted to put at the number 4 and 3 spot, but I am actually going to put STR Kid Buu, the latest Dokkan Festival to come out over on JP Dokkan. Kid Buu is an absolute monster of a unit. Greatly needed, considering we have not had a new Kid Buu since the Int Kid Buu, which I think came out over 4 years ago now. And he's a monster. He finally lives up to the name of Kid Buu, of just being this absolutely destructive unit. Kid Buu is a built-up unit, so turn 1 is the main part where he really lacks. Unfortunately, because, like, he starts out with, like, I don't know, 2-3 million attack, but then once you get to turn 3 plus and he's launching 2 to 3 super attacks, his attack skyrockets as well as his defense. After like 3 or 4 attacks, his defense is well into the 200 and 300k thousand range, and then once he's fully built up on a rainbow team, you're talking about 500k defense bare minimum, with like a 9 million attack stat or something like that. It goes without saying that Kid Buu is now an absolute juggernaut of a unit, but turn 1 situations is really where he's going to hurt the most. Afterwards, on turn 3 prior, is where Kid Buu really starts to shine. But of course, it's just in comparison to the number 3 units, who I'll talk about in a second. Turn 1 is where a lot of situations matter the most. So that's why I got Kid Buu at the number 4 spot. Coming in at the number 3 spot is actually going to be the Tech Android 17 and 18. Now, like I said, I did have a hard time comparing Kid Buu to Tech Android 17 and 18. But here's the main downside, or excuse me, the plus that I have over them is that turn 1, it cannot go without saying that, number 1, they have that insane damage reduction. Well, isn't that damage? No, excuse me. It's damage nullification, where they block out key-based super attacks if you're above 35% HP or more, and it's one of the best defensive abilities in the entire game. It literally cannot be said enough how strong of an ability that is. Plus, given that they are also a nuking type unit, they make key spears for themselves, and they're a must run on all their teams. The main reason why I wanted to have them like flip-flop back and forth between the 3rd and 4th spot between Kid Buu is that, unfortunately for the androids, they do not have big bad bosses similar to the legendary Super Saiyan Broly, and therefore they aren't really going to work well on a lot of their other teams, especially the villain teams in particular. You're only going to want to run them with other android units, compared to, and especially like Broly, where you want to run them with other Saiyan type units, where a lot of the villains do work well together because they share links like Nightmare, Big Bad Bosses, Brutal Beatdown, a lot of them, which the androids do have, but Big Bad Bosses is such an important link which they lack. If they had them, if they did have Big Bad Bosses, then it would be without question. But Kid Buu does have Big Bad Bosses, which is why I had such a hard time deciding. But, I mean, like I said, it can't go without saying that damage nullification of blocking out Keyblade super attacks is just so absolutely broken, which is why I put the androids at the number 3 spot. Coming in at the number 2 spot. Now, this one is definitely up for debates for a lot of people. I know a lot of people had a hard time about this, but I am going to put STR Super Saiyan Vegeta at the number 2 spot on this list. The main reason, of course, is number 1, yeah, it has to be said, his Pure Saiyan's leader skill is absolutely insane. It's broken. Pure Saiyans have become such a monster of a team now, and it's just, I literally can't even put it into words. Vegeta's an absolute monster, especially with his guaranteed crits. He has guaranteed stuns, which makes him so valuable for super battle row situations, and especially alongside his guaranteed crits. The main reason why I do put him a little lower on this list, well, I mean, a little lower on this list, even though he's at the number 2 spot. The one area where he really lacks, of course, is his defense, unfortunately. The main reason is because he has to get hit first to gain his defensive ability, and then his defense is around, like, 250k plus, but that first hit can get you caught sometimes. If that first hit just so happens to be a super attack, you're most likely gonna die, which really sucks in Vegeta's case, which is why you want to keep him in slot 2 for all intents and purposes. But he also gains an attack buff if you get hit first, so it's like, it's really debatable, but that, again, his defense is where he really lacks, and that's the only bad thing that I could really say about him. But his guaranteed crits, guaranteed stuns, guaranteed stun, Pure Saiyan's lead, I mean, the Pure Saiyan's leader still absolutely carries this unit, and it's without question, and it goes to show, too, but, that's why I keep Vegeta at the number 2 spot. And of course, at the number 1 spot, you probably have guessed this by now, but of course, yes, it is going to be the new physical Super Saiyan 2 Goku that transforms into Super Saiyan 3 Goku. I have no real complaints about this guy. I mean, he has built-in additionals, built-in crit, and if you fall below 77% HP or less, you can transform into Super Saiyan 3 Goku as early as turn 3, which greatly benefits this unit. And I mean, Super Saiyan 3 Goku is just an absolute monster, rocking multiple different super attacks, each of which has the chance of becoming a super attack, as well as being able to have a 70% chance of a crit on the first 6 turns, and then afterwards he has a 50% chance to crit. It goes without saying. It's just the built-in additionals, the built-in crits. He's rocking 250,000, not 250,000, 250% attack and defense. His defense is like 300,000, 400,000 plus. His attack is like 7-8 million plus. He's an absolute juggernaut of the unit. There are no real complaints about this guy that I have, which is why I keep him at the number 1 spot. And that's it. That's all I really gotta say about this. Again, you're free to disagree with me if you want. Again, this is all my personal opinions on the matter. I didn't want to make this into a 30-minute video about. I talked about the individual strengths and weaknesses and whatnot. I want to make this a little bit shorter compared to other tier lists. But for the most part, I think I got my point across about why I put each unit in their designated spots. I think a lot of people might disagree with me on some aspects, and that's fine. I know, blasphemy, I didn't put STR Cooler on this list. He should have been at the 10th spot, but it's whatever. No, I'm kidding. But regardless, I think I do feel very comfortable saying that the new Super Saiyan Goku, Super Saiyan 2 Goku, excuse me, is the best TUR in the game. I do feel comfortable saying that STR Super Vegeta is still at number 2. Videl in the number 10 spot. A lot of people may disagree with me on that, but again, her power cannot go without said. And that's really all I got for you guys. Again, you're free to disagree with me if you want, but again, it's my personal tier list, so hash down in the comments if you want. I will have more tier list videos coming out about top 10 LRs in the game, I think. Maybe I'll do a tier list for EZA units as well. We'll have to see. But I really wanted to do the DOKKANFEST TUR ones, in my personal opinion. That's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have a happy new year, and I will see you guys on the next one.